James Chin released a YouTube video basically titled "Beginner Friendly Mechanics Are Useless." So, that title is definitely like eye catching, and I'm pretty sure some people looked at it and said, "You don't know what you're talking about, Chin." But he basically went on just giving different examples of different fighting game mechanics, such as reversal edge, how they have changed that so many different times in a game. Because basically, if you give something that's beginner friendly to a beginner that says, "Hey, this should help you be better at the game and actually help you stand up to the people who might actually be better than you or have more experience to you," if you give that to a pro, um, then he's probably gonna what's the word? What's the phrase I could use? He's probably going to take that same thing that's for the beginners, manipulate it to his advantage. James Chin said basically it's kind of like sniper rifles and shooting games. If you made a sniper rifle to where like it made it easy for beginners to get kills, you put that in the hand of a pro, he's basically going to run over the game. You know, like he's well more advanced and knowing what he's doing. So if you give him a tool that makes it easier for him to be better than what he already is, then it's kind of like it defeats the purpose. Then he talked about auto combos and how just jamming one button or jamming buttons doesn't necessarily at the end of the day gonna make them a better character. Jamming buttons doesn't make you feel any type of success, or like Terance said before, like you feel like a certain level of accomplishment because you've done something that took you a while to learn how to do. Jamming buttons is just jamming buttons. And if you ever wanted to get to that next level of to be a better fighting game player, I mean, you're gonna have to stop jamming buttons. So why did I learn this in the first place? So he basically gave all these different examples of how he feels like fighting game beginner mechanics are useless. So giving it over to you guys, what do you guys think? Do you think of beginner fighting game mechanics are a good thing? They're a bad thing? You think they're useful, useless? Starting with you, Mr. MC Amazing.
Okay, so my opinion on this is basically like, well, I feel like first off, the whole thing about calling it like beginner friendly, I feel like that is kind of a misnomer. I think it's like, I mean, if you're going, I think if you're looking at it the way that James Chen is presenting it, like it's like, well, these are beginner friendly, things are useless. Then like, yeah, like it's for beginners, and like, yeah, I guess you could probably say that. But I would say that I would contend that it's not necessarily beginner friendly. I would say it's more along the lines of being casual friendly. I would say more than anything. I think like this is a kind of these are the kind of mechanics that kind of have you in like in you're playing the game and you're not necessarily, you don't know anything about the game and you're just trying to get your feet wet. You're just trying to get used to like all like get used to the mechanics or get used to the flow of the game. And you're probably not somebody who's learned any combos. You just want to jump in and try the game out, and you just go in and you just start smashing buttons, right? And you're expecting something to happen, right? So they've basically put a thing in the game, like with the auto combos and stuff, that those kind of people who just want to jump in the game and see what it's like, they can just press a bunch of buttons and then have something happen. Like you hit the same button for like 8 times, and then your person does a combo. There's a super at the end. You feel like, oh well, that was cool. I did something. Look, I did something. And then it kind of like whets your appetite a little bit, because then you're kind of like, okay, like what else can I do, right? Like I think it's less about like being like what you call like a beginner friendly thing where it's like, oh well, beginner, this is for beginners. I feel like it's more about like somebody who's casual, who's not necessarily serious about the game yet. It's like somebody who's not sure if they want this to be a game that they play long term. Like this is, I feel like these are things in the game that are more like supposed to get people interested in staying there, like getting them there and then making them stay there. And then you become a beginner. And I think, well, after you become a beginner, then you kind of like start learning new things. I feel like like I said, I feel like the whole term of beginner friendly in a lot of these cases is a misnomer, because it's not really for beginners. Like I feel like you're more of a beginner when you start actually trying to learn the game. You're learning like combos, you're learning the commands, you're getting deeper into the game. And I feel like that's more for like these mechanics that he's like more talking about. These are mechanics that are more for people who are casual, that they want to become serious players. Like you're hoping that they make that transition from casual to serious. And like in that case, I think they're far from useless. I think in the case of like keep making casual people interested in playing the game long term, I feel like it contributes to the interest that somebody who just walked in off the street, they saw something happen, they get the controller, they don't know how to play the game at all. They don't know how to play the game at all. They're a casual watcher, viewer, spectator coming in to try their hand at the game, and they made something happen. Now they're interested in the game. Now they're thinking, oh, well, I can do some of that stuff. And then they realize, okay, this is kind of like a training wheels thing. I need to actually like shed this and like try to learn more about the game outside of like the way that I was introduced to the game. So in that regard, I think that they're not useless. I think that like, I just think that it's not, like I said, it's a misnomer. I don't think it's necessarily I think it's just casual friendly.
My take on it is that when it comes to beginner friendly mechanics, they just don't seem to work in the long run for most games. I know I love to always go back to Street Fighter Cross Tekken, but it's definitely this example just came to mind is the auto block gem. The intent behind the auto block gem was to make it where, okay, if you're a beginner or you're more casual, that if you don't really know how to block, this gem will help you. Great. That's good for casuals. Guess what? You put that in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing, they're going to be blocking all day. And it just makes the game unfun. And so people were running auto block, the auto block gym online, and they would actually know how to play the game. And it made it where even when you finally were able to open them up, the gym would make it where they would block. So it's like, well, guess what? You just made the person who was actually good at the game even better at it unintentionally. So it defeated the whole purpose of, being just strictly like a beginner friendly quote unquote tool. And nowadays, a lot of these fighting games, they have auto combos built in. And for the most part, I've gotten used to auto combos just because auto combos have been in games since I think one of the first ones to incorporate it was Persona 4 Arena. And I mean, it's been like 10 years since that game came out. So
it's been a while.
Oh yeah, it's been a while since that game came out. So I mean, we've seen auto combos in plenty of games by now. So when a game announces it's going to have auto combos, it's like, okay, well, I mean, what else is new? But the thing is with auto combos is that it doesn't really help in the long run. The only other game that I can think of where it actually used auto combos effectively was Dragon Ball FighterZ, where they made it where it actually you could actually incorporate the auto combos into the real combos, and it helped. That was a fun way of making it work for both beginners and my intermediate and advanced players. But outside of that, auto combos are always seen as like the scrub friendly mechanic. And honestly, once you get used to using auto combos, the game doesn't really teach you from there how to go from using auto combos. If you're truly a beginner or a casual, it doesn't really teach you how to go from doing that auto combo to doing real combos. And at the end of the day, for me, I think what a lot of these games are lacking, and man, this has been a problem since like the Street Fighter 4 era, and it still continues to be. I guess we have to have some kind of push like what we did with Rollback, where 10 years later, developers will finally figure out, it's like, oh, this is what you guys need. This will help our game sell. Well, we should put that in there a long time ago. It was like, no, duh. We told you that for ages. But games need better tutorials, better ways to teach players how to actually play the game. One of my big gripes with a lot of fighting games now is that I feel like I have to go to other platforms to learn more about the game than the game teaches me itself. For like KOF 15, for all the praise that we've been giving it, the game doesn't really do a good job of teaching you how to play. The tutorial is bare bones. It's like we still have these basic tutorials where it's like, oh, to block, you just hold back. To move forward, you move forward. It's like, no duh. It's like, can you teach me more stuff than that and make it more fun to learn? And I think that's the problem with a lot of these tutorials, that what they do put in the game is not really that fun to play. Developers just need to learn how to make it where these tutorials are not only educational, but they're fun. Do I know the exact approach or way that they should do that? I don't, admittedly, but I think that's something that should really be looked at, is that they need to look into how the community teaches people to play the game and somehow incorporate that into the game itself, whether that be, I don't know, having YouTube style tutorials in your actual game, or maybe hiring some of these people that are known to FGC to make beginner friendly content, maybe hire them to make content for your game itself. I don't know. I don't know the true answer to it, but I think that that's the way that you get around all these beginner friendly mechanics, to just get better at teaching your actual players how to play the game instead of like giving them some kind of crutch that doesn't really help in the long run.